Why, even when everything seemed aligned, was there always an unseen emptiness? You smiled, delivered, achieved, and yet at each finish line a strange silence followed. It wasn't sadness, it was absence, as if something essential stayed 2 steps behind every success you reached. As if each victory cast a shadow and whispered, "Is this all?" You tried to fill it with love, goals, beauty. You changed cities, bodies, voices, became more spiritual, healthier, lighter. But the emptiness remained, tucked in a corner of your chest that nobody saw. And the hardest part was not being able to name it. Because from the outside, everything seemed fine. So you learned to stay silent, to call absence maturity when it was really resignation. You moved forward, with skill, with courage, but a part of you was still waiting, without the words to ask for them. And maybe that was the deepest hurt. Living a life you couldn't explain while carrying the knowledge that something crucial had never come along. You lived like someone who forgot something at home but can't remember what. A part of you was left behind, not in a place, but in time. Perhaps in a childhood forced to grow early. Perhaps in a choice that wasn't yours that you swallowed. Or the day you understood that love demanded you leave half of yourself on the doorstep. And so you specialized in moving on while fragmented. You learned to adjust your smile, tone down your pain, play the roles others expected. And each time a piece remained, an unspoken word, a stifled desire. You became an expert at functioning, with inside chaos nobody else noticed. That missing part wasn't luxury, it was root, the piece that grounded you. Yet absent, you sought replacements, relationships that patched for a while, recognition that numbed briefly, distractions that never lasted. And so the emptiness didn't disappear, it just disguised itself in new forms. Maybe now you're asking, what if what I'm missing isn't out there? What if what's missing is precisely what I left behind to belong, survive, perform? It wasn't dramatic, no divine spotlight, no words of power, just a moment of deep fatigue, a hush between tasks, a slower than usual sigh. And in that sigh, something reached you, a long forgotten memory, an old scent, a phrase someone said long ago that returned and hurt. You didn't rush, you sat with it. You didn't try to explain, just let that presence fill the space. And in that simple gesture, something began to shift. Like the part of you waiting decades finally sensed it could return. There was no ceremony, only opening. And sometimes that's enough for what was missing to come close. You couldn't explain it. But you felt it, the ground beneath you making sense again. And in that outline, a sweet sadness came. You spent life trying to be whole without access to your own self. And then, wordless, you realized it wasn't life that failed you. It was you who had been absent from yourself. But now, in small flashes, you were coming back. It wasn't your head. It was your body that understood first. A strange relief spread across your shoulders. Your chest loosened, your hands unclenched, as if your body always knew where it hurt, but had only now permission to show it. And in that showing, there was something more than pain. There was return. An old self, no longer denied. You realized you spent years trying to fix what simply needed space. Some absences aren't healed. They need listening. Some wounds require acceptance, not correction. To acknowledge the void isn't to fall, it's to wait for something real removed to find its way back. And return takes time, not force, so you began allowing. A tear long held, a fatigue long hidden, a wish once dismissed. And with every permission, something fell into place. Not with ecstasy, but with belonging. Like finding an old object in a drawer, still carrying its original scent. And in your body you began building a new home, not one shaped by external expectations, but by the pulse that still beat. In silence. Once that part of you returned, the world didn't lighten. Responsibility remained. But now there was a center, something solid amid motion. You didn't rush for more. You walked to find yourself. And even on hard days, a quiet knowing. I came back, and that changes everything. Tasks lost their proving weight. Relationships became companionship, not contracts of validation. You began living with presence, not distant fear. You let yourself feel without apology. You stopped being a tool. You began being a person. And whenever lack recurred, you sat with yourself listening to what needed to return. In this new way, you learned that what was missing wasn't brilliance or permanent peace. It was rootedness. Permission to be whole, unedited, to be in the world without performance, to err without judgment, to be seen without agenda. And that simple craving was your soul's deepest call. You didn't want everything. You wanted to belong wholly. And that, at last, was happening. You'd grown accustomed to waiting, for validation, a breakthrough, a sign. But now, after so many revolutions, you see, what you sought wasn't out there. It lay buried beneath the versions you'd been forced to become. It wasn't life withholding. You had forgotten your own store. In this new gaze, time slows. Comparisons lose power. The urge to impress dissolves. What remains is serene presence, delight in simplicity, comfort in sufficiency, trust in the unsaid. No need for constant high notes. You can just be. Beauty in neutral, strength in stability, love in the ordinary. And in this state, what once felt missing settles. Not filled, but accepted. Because you stopped resisting your own contained completeness. To allow is not to complete. It's to stop fleeing from yourself. So you stopped chasing voids and started nurturing the pulse within. You realized it wasn't emptiness, it was exile. And if exile is distance, then return is remembrance. Remembering who you are when you stop trying to be more. In the end, you understood. It wasn't life that needed offering. It was you who needed to return whole. With the parts you laid down to belong. The dreams you buried to fit. The pain you silenced to appear strong. To return with an unedited soul. Not to be perfect, but to be real. Now, when something seems absent, you don't chase, you listen. Because sometimes what's missing isn't something, it's presence. Yours, whole, without filters. And with that whole, everything changes. Absences lose drama. Waiting becomes pause. Lack becomes invitation. Because you no longer search outside. You inhabit, and by inhabiting you are enough. And being enough, you stop demanding life compensate what once was denied. Because now you know, nothing outside was missing. It was just the courage to return to yourself. And the phrase that closes the path without ending it, what was always missing was the space for you to belong, entirely. If you too felt there was always something missing, right below, what has now returned in you? Return to this video whenever the emptiness finds you. Here there is room for all that lives in silence.